What is up, everybody? You are listening to the SEC Recap Podcast. I am your host, Ben Warren. Kind of been off this week. Went on a little trip out of town, but am back at it for our Game of the Week episode. Hey, before we get into it, give us a follow on Twitter at SEC Recap. If you're listening on YouTube, sub to the channel, smash that like on the video, and don't forget to check out our merch on our Bonfire store. That's bonfire.com/store/SEC Recap. We've got some really cool SEC Pride merch out. SEC Week 12 Game of the Week. This is number 14, Ole Miss at Arkansas. Number 14, Ole Miss Rebels heading to Fayetteville to face the Arkansas Razorbacks. Game is kicking off at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on SEC Network. You know, this is largely a cupcake week throughout the SEC. Of the 10 conference games in Week 12, only 4 of them are SEC matchups, and even then, not particularly compelling ones. The SEC divisions have already been clinched. LSU's win over Arkansas last week locks them in as the West champ, and Georgia's win over Mississippi State sealed their status as the East champion. Those two teams will meet in Atlanta in December. So there's no more games that impact the SEC positioning, and outside of Tennessee still needing to run up video game scores on South Carolina and Vandy to vie for a CFP spot, there's virtually nothing that will impact the CFP. This makes finding something that qualifies as a quote-unquote game of the week more difficult. As in previous weeks, I relied on, high-profile ranked matchups, games with SEC or CFP implications. This week, I kind of have to go with what maybe the closest game might be. Number 1, Georgia is a 22.5 point favorite over Kentucky on the road. Kentucky lost to Vanderbilt last week. No thanks. Florida's a 2 touchdown favorite over Vandy on the road. Not interested. You got number 5, Tennessee, but they're a 22 point favorite over South Carolina on the road. Could it be interesting? Maybe for a quarter and a half, but nah. And then you got number 14, Ole Miss, going on the road to Arkansas as a 2.5 point favorite. Okay. I can work with this. Ole Miss would sure like to go 10-2 rather than 9-3 or 8-4. They still have the Egg Bowl to end the season. Arkansas sitting at 5-5, and a win this week or next week at Missouri gets them bowl eligible. Ole Miss still has Citrus Bowl potential, while the Hogs most likely looking at, Liberty Bowl, Texas Bowl, maybe a Music City Bowl, just depending. So while not the most compelling game of the season, I know I'm not doing a good job of selling this episode right now, but this matchup still checks enough boxes to qualify for the game of the week. So if you're an Ole Miss fan, if you're an Arkansas fan, now is a great time to head to bonfire.com/store/SEC Recap. Check out that SEC Pride merch for the Rebels and the Razorbacks. Let's get into it. First on offense, Ole Miss is the number 19 scoring offense in the country. Rebels are averaging 36.1 points per game, 485 yards a game, and about 25-50 in time of possession. They have the number 77 pass offense. Not amazing. They don't like to put it through the air. They prefer to keep it on the ground. They're getting 225 yards a game, and they got 17 total passing tutties on the season. And meanwhile, they've got the number 3 rushing offense in the country. And I talked about this last week going into that game with Alabama. This is their strength. They're getting 259 yards a game on the ground, 2.9 rushing touchdowns a game. They've got 29 total on the year. They've also thrown 8 interceptions and lost 4 out of 18 fumbles. Flip it on over to the Razorbacks. Arkansas has the number 56 scoring offense in the country. They're averaging 29.9 points per game, 460 yards a game, and just under 30 minutes in time of possession. They've got the number 56 pass offense. Again, like Ole Miss, they'd rather not put it through the air. They'd like to lean on that run game. They're getting 238 yards a game. They've got 19 passing touchdowns on the year, but number 12 rushing offense in FBS. 223 yards a game. They are not far behind Ole Miss. They've got 18 total rushing tutties on the year. They've thrown 5 INTs and they have lost 9 out of 18 fumbles. Need to clean that up. I'm giving the advantage offensively here to Ole Miss. Let's look at the defensive side of the ball. Ole Miss, number 40 in the country in scoring defense, averaging 22.4 points allowed and 371 yards a game. They've got the number 61 pass defense, giving up about 220 yards a game. They've got the number 72 run defense, giving up 151 yards a game. Meanwhile, they've collected 6 INTs and recovered 8 fumbles. Arkansas, statistically, not a great defense. Number 91 in the country in scoring defense. They're averaging 28.9 points allowed and giving up over 400 yards a game. We all know that their passing defense is their weakness. They have the number 120 ranked passing defense. They're allowing over 280 yards a game. They've given up 17 total tutties through the air. And in the run defense, they're number 65, allowing 146 yards a game. They've given up 20 rushing touchdowns. Meanwhile, they've collected 6 INTs and recovered 6 fumbles. So we have 2 good rushing offenses, but statistically 2 pretty mediocre to below average defenses in the pass and the run. I'm going to give the advantage defensively here to Ole Miss just because that passing defense for Arkansas has been so weak. So defensive advantage, Ole Miss. Key injuries in this game. Lane Kiffin is notoriously tight-lipped about injuries on the team unless they're obvious. Jackson Dart took that brutal head-twisting hit. I'm surprised it's even still on his shoulders this week after that Alabama game. But he seems to be okay. For Arkansas, KJ Jefferson was out versus LSU with an undisclosed injury. Still very unclear what that is. But Sam Pittman has said he is probable, likely to play this week. Okay, key players for Ole Miss, no doubt, it's running back Quinshon Judkins, SEC leading rusher. He's got 1,171 rushing yards and 15 rushing touchdowns on the year. He's only 142 yards away from the school single season record. Oh, and by the way, he's a freshman. Unreal season he's having. For Arkansas, quarterback KJ Jefferson, he was out last week with that undisclosed injury in that loss to LSU. The Hogs had just 133 yards on the ground on 46 carries. They really rely on KJ Jefferson to open up that run game. So what this game comes down to, for me, the team that slows the opposing run game the best will probably win. Rebels have the number 3 rushing offense in the country, led by freshman phenom Quinshon Judkins. Meanwhile, Arkansas has the number 12 rushing offense in the country, helmed by KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders. Now, I didn't mention him in my key players, but Sanders is right behind Judkins in the SEC at 1,147 yards. So just 20 some odd yards behind Judkins, and he actually averages a superior 6.2 yards per carry to Judkins' 5.7. The difference is really touchdowns. Sanders has 8 rushing tutties on the year, while Judkins has 15. I consider these guys more of a 1A, 1B in the SEC rather than a 1 and 2. They're both just so good. But by contrast, these power backs are going up against average at best run defenses. Granted, both defenses have had some good showings in certain games this season, but by and large, these defenses aren't exceptional. I think the team that slows the opposing run game the most will have the best odds for success. Second, I'm wondering, can either defense apply enough pressure to the opposing quarterback to affect the pass game? Arkansas's pass defense is among the worst in FBS, but the Razorbacks lead the SEC in sacks at 35 and sack yards at 219 on the year. So that's like 3.5 sacks a game average, and 21, almost 22 sack yards on average per game. Ole Miss is pretty solid as well. They're third in the league with 28 sacks and 188 sack yards. So I'm interested to see which team can affect the QB the most. KJ Jefferson is always a threat in the run zone. ESPN's FBI has Ole Miss favored at a 67.9% chance to win versus Arkansas at a 32.1% chance to win. Look, I've never really liked ESPN's FPI as a betting metric. It's based on a lot of things. It's a really good calculation to kind of show you what the favorable outcome should be, but it can't factor in things like weather, unforeseen injuries, things that happen on the field. Whereas when odds makers are setting betting lines and spreads, they can kind of factor in those things a little better. I always mention the FPI just because it does give you a nice, somewhat clear summary statistic of which team is the favorite. The spread favors Ole Miss at -2.5, as does the money line at -130. And as I'm recording this, the over-under is at 65, with team totals for Ole Miss at 34 and Arkansas at 31. I do not have a lean over or under in this matchup. In fact, I don't know that I would look too hard at any of the betting for this game. Vegas clearly thinks this one is a coin flip, with Ole Miss going on the road in some cold weather conditions. It's a night game. Ole Miss is 4-5-1 against the spread, and Arkansas is 5-5. It's hard to get more coin flippy than that. For a combination of all these reasons, I'm staying away from the betting odds on this game because I think it is way too uncertain. All right, got to give you a final prediction here. The cold conditions make throwing the ball more difficult, makes me believe that both teams will lean into their very strong run games even more. The team that can affect the opposing quarterback and slow the opposing run game the most will have the best chance to win. Can I see Lane Kiffin laying a turd in Fayetteville and then scooting on out to Auburn after this year? Yep, I sure can. I can see this being a close game with Arkansas playing hard at home to get bowl eligible. But I also think Arkansas is kind of running out of gas here in the final stretch. They've had too many problems defensively to withstand 60 minutes of constant offensive pressure, and I think it's going to prove to be too much once again for the Hogs. I'm going with a slightly lower scoring, heavy run game affair. So maybe you could say I lean the under here, but give me Ole Miss 27, Arkansas 24. Guys, don't forget you can check out this article with all of these stats on my website, secrecap.com. Go to the articles page. I archive all of this there for you. If you're more of a visual person and you just like to see the numbers, go check that out. You'll also find weekly power rankings, picks, and a whole lot more. All right, let's go around the conference with the rest of our Week 12 predictions. We have a lot more games this week than we've had the last couple of weeks. But as I mentioned in the opener, it's a lot of cupcakes. So first up, starting with the noon games, we've got Austin Peay going to number 8, Alabama. I mean, there's not even betting lines for this game. Give me Alabama in a blowout. ETSU is going to Mississippi State. Same thing. There's not even betting odds for this game. Give me Mississippi State in what should be a blowout. And we got UMass traveling to College Station to play Texas A&M. The Aggies are a 33.5-point favorite over 1-9 UMass. This has been a disastrous season for the Aggies, but they should get this one no problem. I don't know if they'll cover the 33 points. Maybe they will. It really doesn't matter. They're still the worst team in the SEC. Next up, we got Florida at Vanderbilt. Florida going on the road this time. They're a 2-touchdown favorite over Vandy in Nashville. Look, there's no such thing as home field advantage at Vanderbilt. I think Florida rolls into town and wins this game, no problem. Maybe they don't cover the 14, but I kind of got a feeling they do. Then we got number 1 Georgia traveling to Lexington to play Kentucky. Georgia is a 22.5-point road favorite. 4 weeks ago, I think Kentucky fans probably thought they still legitimately had a chance to beat Tennessee, Georgia, and stay competitive in the East. Now, I'm not sure fans think they even have a chance of scoring points in this game. I mean, I don't think Georgia necessarily needs to run up the score here. I mean, they've got the SEC East clinched. They don't need style points. They're number 1 in the country in the CFP rankings. I'm sure they would probably just like to get a comfy 3-touchdown lead and then get their starters out of the game. I think they could easily cover these points, though. Then we got Western Kentucky at Auburn. Sneaky good. I would make this my game of the week, except it's only one SEC team. Western Kentucky is not a bad squad and could actually upset Auburn here. Auburn really needs to slow down the Hilltoppers' passing attack and control the clock. I mean, Auburn should win this game, but we know how bad Auburn's been this year. Western Kentucky's really good. Auburn needs to be careful. Next, we got number 5, Tennessee, going to South Carolina. The Vols are a 22-point road favorite. Tennessee has a knack for somehow allowing bad teams to score points when they shouldn't. But there is nothing, and I repeat, nothing I have seen from South Carolina this season that makes me think they can stop or keep up with Tennessee's offense. New Mexico State at Missouri. This is 2 4-win teams that basically allow more yards than they gain. Missouri is still trying to get bowl eligible and may end up as one of those awful 5-7 teams that still gets a bowl bid because there aren't enough 6-6 teams. Also, Eli Drinkowitz got a 2-year extension for some reason to make $6 million a year to take a quote-unquote step forward to 6-6. Okay. Final game of the evening, UAB at number 6, LSU. Give me LSU. Guys, that's going to do it for today's show. If you enjoyed this content, give us a follow on Twitter at SEC Recap. Get all of our content at secrecap.com. Like, subscribe, get notified for new episodes each and every week. If you're listening on YouTube, smash that like, that thumbs up, drop us a comment, and sub to the channel, and check out our merch, bonfire.com/store/SEC Recap. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. It's great to be in the SEC right here on the SEC Recap.